thanks so much for joining us on this news hour. So as I understand, this is just a temporary ban. It's only going to be in place until the 30th of June. So in those 2.5 months, what difference does it make? Why would the EU be upset about something like this?
Yes, very good day to you. Now, this is indeed a topic which goes and into the fundamentals of EU lawmaking. Now, the EU and Brussels is upset because 2 individual member states basically want to interfere in EU trade policy. Trade policy is one of the harmonized areas, not completely, but to a large extent. Now, Poland has announced that Polish farmers feel the pinch. They were like before in the European Union. Now, I would call it grain mountains piling up whilst prices are going down because of imports tariff-free of grain and just above a dozen of other foodstuffs. Now, Poland might be considered being protectionist in this regard, but what do you do? The agricultural minister already resigned, and there is widespread dissatisfaction with the grain from Ukraine coming into Poland. The same to a lesser extent, but Hungary is equally upset. Now, both have said there will be a temporary import ban until the 30th of June. So this was the wider picture. The EU has a point. Trade policy is widely harmonized. 2 individual countries trying to interfere in that. The EU is no longer speaking with one voice. What was the reason for cheap imports coming in from Ukraine in the first place? The EU cancelled import tariffs on a large variety of goods to make it certain that those foodstuffs can actually leave Ukraine and are sold in European markets, Poland and Hungary included. It is not a palace revolution, but it underlines growing dissatisfaction in a number of European Union countries with a number of EU policies.
Could this have a broader impact now on that Ukraine grain deal that has been so important, not just to Europe and to Ukraine and Russia, but to the world as a whole?
Thank you very much, if I may say so. It's a fantastic point. Yes, this was my second wider picture too. Now, the United Nations Secretary General himself has said he is worried that Moscow might actually cancel the Turkey and United Nations brokered grain deal. But this grain deal means that actually a safe passage of foodstuffs is allowed to countries where there is a humanitarian or food crisis. We have to distinguish between general tariff-free imports into the European Union or the Turkey-United Nations brokered grain deal. Turkey says everyone is hoping that Moscow will actually not cancel it. Here, the deadline is 6 weeks earlier on the 14th of May, if I'm not mistaken. Moscow says a number of sanctions vis-à-vis Russia have to be lifted before they would agree a prolongation. Again, I think Ankara did a marvelous job in brokering this deal in the first place. And I think Ankara is tasked one more time because it is one of the very, very few countries and governments actually speaking to both sides in this conflict. And it is not impossible that it will be prolonged, but German chancellors in the past and now sometimes they say there will be no world without Russia overnight, and perhaps words and diplomacy with regards to the extension of the grain deal might make sense.
Klaus Jurgens, always good to get your analysis. Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you very much indeed.